You're sitting at your desk. Maybe it's a meeting, maybe it's the subway. Your eyes are pointed at a screen, a window, someone's PowerPoint about quarterly revenue. But your brain? Your brain checked out 90 seconds ago, and it didn't go somewhere productive. It went there. A flash, a scene, vivid, uninvited, lasting maybe 5 seconds, maybe 15. Then you snap back, you blink, you glance around the room like you just committed a crime in public. No one noticed. Of course, no one noticed. But your pulse is a little faster. And somewhere in the back of your skull, a tiny voice whispers, "What is wrong with me?" Here's your answer: nothing. And I can prove it. A study published in the Journal of Sexual Medicine surveyed thousands of adults and found that 97% of them reported having sexual fantasies. Not once in a while, not when the mood strikes, regularly, daily, for most. The remaining 3%? Researchers suspect most of them just didn't want to admit it on paper. There is no line between normal people and people with a problem. There's only a spectrum of frequency and detail. Some people get a blurry flash. Some people get a full director's cut with a soundtrack, but everybody's brain is doing it. Why? Because your brain has a default mode. Neuroscientists call it the default mode network, the DMN. It's a system that fires up the instant you stop focusing on a task. The moment your attention drifts, even for a second, the DMN kicks in and starts generating content, simulations, scenarios, daydreams, and it doesn't pick topics randomly. It selects whatever delivers the highest neurochemical payoff in the shortest time. In that competition, sex wins, almost every time. Your brain isn't being perverted, it's being efficient. You're not broken, you're default. And here's the part that surprises most people. The frequency of your sexual fantasies has very little to do with how satisfied or unsatisfied you are in real life. People in happy, deeply loving relationships fantasize just as often as people who are single and lonely. This isn't about craving what you don't have, it's a cognitive function. Your brain would do this if you were stranded on a desert island. It would do this if you were a monk. It's not commentary on your life, it's your operating system running background processes. To your neurons, the difference between imagining something and living it is barely a whisper. Your brain doesn't really know, it's just a fantasy. And honestly, it doesn't care. So everyone does it, and the brain is built for it. But for some people, the volume isn't just on, it's stuck on max. And the reason has nothing to do with desire. Clinical research has found something that flips the whole script. When sexual fantasy frequency spikes way beyond someone's personal baseline, when it becomes relentless, almost compulsive, it doesn't correlate with high sex drive. It correlates with anxiety, with loneliness, with emotional deprivation, with a desperate need for a sense of control. Think about it like this. Have you ever been so stressed that you spent 3 hours doom scrolling without blinking? You weren't enjoying it. You weren't even choosing it. Your brain was grabbing the nearest source of dopamine to patch over an emotional wound. Sexual fantasy can work exactly the same way. When your emotional bank account is overdrawn, when you're running on fumes of connection, recognition, safety, your brain reaches for the fastest neurochemical fix it has. It's not lust. It's a painkiller. This isn't everyone's story. If you're fantasizing a lot and your life feels full, that's just your brain doing brain things. But if you've noticed a phase where it became relentless, almost suffocating, go back and look at what was happening in your life during that window. 9 times out of 10, the answer isn't in your desire, it's in your stress. Now here's where it gets twisted, because the one thing society taught you to do about all this is the exact thing that makes it worse. In 1987, psychologist Daniel Wegner ran an experiment that changed everything. He gave people one instruction: don't think about a white bear. You already know what happened. They couldn't stop. The group told to suppress the thought ended up thinking about white bears more than the group that was allowed to think freely. Wegner called it ironic process theory. To monitor whether a thought is appearing, your brain has to keep activating that thought. Suppression doesn't delete the file, it puts it on repeat. Map that onto sexual fantasy. Every culture, every religion, Every awkward classroom lecture that told you stop thinking like that. They weren't giving you a solution. They were installing a loop. Don't think about it. So your brain activates it to check, and the thought appears. Then comes the guilt. Then you suppress harder, and the thought appears stronger. Over and over. Forever. The data backs this up brutally. People raised in sexually restrictive environments show significantly higher rates of intrusive sexual thoughts and significantly more distress about them. Not less, more. The people taught most aggressively to suppress these thoughts are the ones most tortured by them. Shame is not a fire extinguisher. Shame is wind. The harder you blow, the bigger the fire gets. Let me be straight with you. Having sexual fantasies, even a lot of them, is normal, full stop. But if they're hijacking your focus, crashing your relationships, making it genuinely hard to function, that's a different signal. Not a moral one, a neurological one. Reaching out to a professional at that point isn't weakness. It's the difference between a check engine light you can ignore and one that means pull over now. Here's where we land. The default mode network, the thing generating your fantasies, is the same system behind creativity, empathy, narrative thinking, and complex problem solving. People with hyperactive default mode networks score significantly higher on creative thinking tests. The neural machinery behind your most shameful thoughts is the same machinery behind art, invention, and emotional intelligence. Same engine, different fuel. The moment you stop white-knuckling the steering wheel, the moment you drop the shame and accept that your brain is doing what brains do, the suppression loop breaks. The volume regulates itself. You don't have to kill this fire, you just have to stop being afraid of it. You were never the problem. The story you were told about yourself was, the mind that wanders the most isn't the weakest, it's the one with the most places it dares to go. If this rewired something, hit subscribe and tell me in the comments, what's one thing you were taught to feel ashamed of that turned out to be completely normal?